couple of minutes.
Yeah, give me a look. Yeah, that's good. This will go like this will be the lead-in right here.
Titling. Did I get everything? Did I get it?
How we doing? Perfect. There's none on your shirt.
Cause even in the madness, there is peace, drowning out the voices all around me. Through all of this chaos, you are writing a symphony, and even in the madness, there is peace, drowning out the voices all around me. Through all of this chaos, you are writing a symphony, oh.
I completely forgot to put a thing into the video last week. It was the very first thing we did on this trip, and it was really neat. So I'm going to cover that first before I dive into what we did the rest of the week. From our first anchorage, we headed north to Norman's Key to check out the infamous drug plane. There are quite a few stories on the internet about this, but apparently Carlos later used Norman's Key to transport drugs back in the 80s. This plane had 2 people on board and a massive amount of marijuana, so much that they couldn't get out once they crash landed here. If you're anchoring, there's an anchorage to the west of the plane near the airstrip. If you're on a dinghy, you can get up pretty close. At low tide, you can stand around the plane and then just swim once you get close to it. So, that was the drug plane. After we got done, we took a quick ride back to the boat and enjoyed a fantastic meal. So let me get on to where I left off last week. After checking out the pigs in the morning and coming back for a lunch, we piled back into the tender and headed south for a new adventure. This is the entrance to the Thunderball Grotto. It gets its name from an old James Bond movie where they didn't really show much of this at all. The timing worked out to where I was the only person in here for the first minute or two, and it was really cool. The sunlight coming in through the holes in the roof, as well as the holes underneath the water, made everything glow blue. It was really mesmerizing to look at it. You can swim through the holes underneath the water, but turn and look up as you're swimming up because there might be a rock right above the surface. We explored the grotto for a good while, but then needed to head out down to Staniel Key to eat some conch fritters. Of course, we didn't film any of that, and I got one parting shot as we were leaving. The next day, we were off to Compass Key to swim with the sharks. We had to cross a cut that was exposed to the Atlantic Ocean on the east side of the islands, and it got pretty rough. The winds were about 20 knots that day. Now this is a nurse shark. They're kind of like dogs. They sit around, they look for food. They don't have to keep moving to stay alive, and their mouths are really tiny. And this is what it looks like when they're eating and all the other fish are fired up too. When you drop in a piece of hot dog and the shark sees it and eats it, you can hear them suck it right into their mouth. These guys were really neat. They felt like sandpaper, and I couldn't stop touching them. They were majestic, neat, peaceful, calm animals. In fact, they were so calm, after eating for a while, they just lay down, sometimes on your feet, and go to sleep. After the sharks, we took a short hop over to Rachel's bubble bath, and we were the only ones there. Maybe it was the weather and the wind, but it was really nice. Rachel's bubble bath is a natural pool that gets replenished from time to time with waves coming in from the sea. On this day, the waves were really big. The next day, we anchored at Bell's Key. This is an island owned by the Aga Khan, and it serves as a great jumping off point to go see a lot of different things in a short amount of time. Our first stop was the Sea Aquarium. This is a nice, protected, small reef where you can swim around and look at a lot of different things. There's some great coral formations here, and if you sit still long enough, the fish are going to come out and take a look at what you're doing. This gray was really curious, and he watched me the whole time we were there. I spotted a queen angelfish, but unfortunately it also spotted me and hid quickly. The gray was wondering why I wasn't paying attention to him, and then I hung out long enough for the queen to come out and get a really good view. When you're snorkeling, staying still really gets the fish to come out. At one point, I kept on looking around and seeing something new everywhere I turned. One really neat thing to do in the Bahamas is at low tide, go find a sandbar and just hang out. So that's what we did. After that, we continued north to Allen's Key, where all the iguanas live. These are Allen Key's rock iguanas, and they were believed to be extinct in the early 1900s due to fishermen eating them. The population on the two keys where they were found were only about 300 in the early 80s, but they've rebounded to about 1,500 today. If you're feeding them, hold the stick straight down to avoid injury to the iguana. And if they get a little too close, a little flick of sand will send them scurrying. As we departed the Allen Keys, we saw a massive ray, and I was able to capture him on camera for just a little bit. On our way back, we stopped for a drift snorkel. This is where you hop off the boat and just drift with the current, and then the boat picks you up a little bit later. It was a little unsettling being in the open ocean and just looking and drifting, but it was kind of peaceful at the same time. I didn't like the shark that I could see in the distance, but they weren't going to mess with us. When we got back to the boat, there was still one more thing to try. This is called a subwing. You get dragged behind a tender at 2 to 3 knots, and you just kind of steer around. Take a breath when you need to take a breath, dive back down when you want to go dive, and before long you learn things like spinning and twisting. It was a lot of fun. My big takeaway from our time in the Exumas was that around every corner there was something new to discover. We went to this bar to grab a drink and watch the sunset, and on the beach were just these stingrays hanging out. Don't know why, they were just there. And that was the deal. Every place we went there was something new and interesting to look at. It was almost overwhelming. There was so much to see and do. A week certainly wasn't enough time to take it all in. I'm still thinking about it. This place was magical and beautiful and awe-inspiring, and the only thing that made it better was hanging out with my family. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and stay tuned next week for our catamaran catastrophe.